I'm very close to Elevator, I'm very close to trend lines and the incubators, and who said they're from Nielsen? Right, that was interesting, because that's brand new, relatively brand new. So I wanted to find out what's going on. Why wasn't this propensity of investing in Israeli companies part of just the natural order of things? So I have, in the New York Angels, 3 Technion graduates, and 4 other Israelis. And they didn't invest in Israeli companies either. Maybe 1 or 2 at the most, but it wasn't up front in their face. It just wasn't there. So when I went to Israel and I came back, my conversation with Neely last week was that now we're going to do it. We're going to figure it out. And when I was in front of the Tech Aviv presentation at the Stock Exchange in Tel Aviv, that same question came up. It is unlikely that we would ever invest in an Israeli company unless they had a presence in an office here. It is unlikely. There are some people who may do it, but it's unlikely. Why? Because before I went over to Israel, I asked, what's wrong with the Israeli tech picture? Why doesn't an Israeli company sometimes not work? Right? Why doesn't it work sometimes? And it was slightly off. There's a famous picture in America when they built the railroads from the east coast of America and the west coast, and they had to meet in the middle, right? That they showed the tracks like this, right? Do you get my point?
Yeah.
There was something just off where the Israeli companies just weren't close enough. It's in my book, of knowing and understanding the customer intimately. And I mean intimately. I don't mean just knowing your customer, but really knowing your customer intimately. So I'm a marketing guy, and if I started asking you questions about your businesses, I will tear you apart for how well you know your customer. And if you don't know your customer intimately, if you ask, and it was from my standpoint when I was running my companies for years, and I would hire outside service providers, the kiss of death answer at the meeting table with them to a question I would ask them, that they would then respond back to me would be, "That's a good question." And I'd say, "Get the F out of my office." Because if you had to wait for me to come up with a good question, and if it's such a good question, why didn't you come up with it? So that intimacy, and that knowledge of your interest, just pure curiosity, you just want to know. If you don't have that, I'm not interested. Does that mean you're not going to succeed? I don't know for sure, but I do know I'm not going to invest in you.